comes the next one in the line. This is the 1700 model, or sorry, 1800 model. So this one's 160 bucks. Does come with some additional nozzles. So 25, a 0, and a 40. And then the connections are flipped. So the inlet is on the front and the outlet is on the back. Again, same basic idea as the Ryobi, but it has a little bit different holder for the wand and then a wrap for your power cord. I'm reading 1100 PSI right now. 925 on a 25 degree. Something doesn't feel quite right, but it is getting, like something feels like it's vibrating a little bit. There we go. It's like 1590. So 1590 with the 40 degree nozzle. Okay, let's do our GPM. There was just some error in the line or something. 11.9, 1.09 GPM. So we saw this similar thing when we went to the cart models that had a little higher pressure. We dropped the flow a little bit. So we had a little less flow, a little bit more pressure. It makes sense if it's basically the same pump. So if it's basically the same pump and you've got more pressure output, it's interesting, the nozzles appear to be the same. So there's something configured a little differently internally on these that makes it flow a little less, gain a little more pressure. All right, so we're at 1175. Check our amperage draw when I do the GPM test here. (13.2), 1.25. So a little less flow, a little more. But actually this one didn't actually put out more pressure than the other smaller ones. It comes down, it's just like the Ryobi, like the little ones seem to be the better units other than current draw. Like obviously the little ones are working, but again, they're just taking the little one and putting it on a cart. So it's just, a lot of it's testing error or just, you know, anomalies in the hose line or water, you know, air in it and all that stuff. So we're within reason. They're within a few PSI and a few GPM of each other. All right, let's keep rolling. Got to do our foam cannon test. 1.1 millimeter orifice. Same result. So we're doing the amperage test. What did we get? 11.7. So I'm doing the test. So if we have, in my logic here is if we have a 13 amp rated motor and if I put the 1.1 millimeter orifice on the foam cannon and let's say we drew 15 amps, we're clearly going to be overworking the motor. So having that smaller orifice on the foam cannon and then having some headroom before measuring it, say at 11 amps, I know that we're safely able to operate it with this size orifice on, you know, this flow and this pressure of a pump. Let's get our SPL rating real quick. 68 dB on that one. Okay, next machine. Okay, so this is the 1950 PSI model, which these aren't really available. I had to order this from Greenworks direct. And even then I'd ordered a couple other models. I kept getting some sort of fraud attempt or some crap. I've ordered 70 of these things, and Greenworks is the only place I had any problems with. So this one isn't stocked at Lowe's, so I don't know how viable it is, but it's rated at 1950, 1.2 GPM. This one has a much better hose on it. This is a very Flexzilla-like looking hose. It's got like a, almost feel, I guess it's still plastic. It looks and feels like it's felt, but it's not. It's a little different. All right, we're at 1500 PSI. And this hose is equally as rough to deal with, but a little bit more pliable. This is a little bit nicer. You know, these are nicer. These, like this is a $160 version where we do get the wand, Of course, these quick disconnects I've added, but we do get the stainless wand. Another advantage is this, I believe, will allow us to accept the foam cannon either on the end of the gun, yeah, so that'll fit, or we can actually adapt the foam cannon to fit here, which would be I would prefer that much more. So we just simply do an adapter to get an M22 connection. In other words, I get an adapter to make it fit, and the foam cannons come with that adapter to make this M22 connection fit. All right, so let's go check our GPM measurement. 12.9. This one did feel a little bit more stout. I might be making that up, but 1.21. So measurably more GPM on this 1950 model than the other. Could partly be from the better hose, the better gun, but the pump appears to be rather similar. All right, let's go. Let's get our SPL rating. 68.5. Yeah, see this one with more flow is gonna need a little bigger nozzle. So this one's, we're gonna wanna put our 3.0 on instead of the 2.5. Yeah, so that gives us right at 1,000 PSI. That's the way to go. So 3.0 nozzle on the 1950. Yeah, that's a better way to do it. All right, let's do our test. I think I like this machine the best. Yeah, 14.7. 1.43 GPM. This is the best. This is the best one thus far out of all of them. Has the best hose, has the best gun, has the best GPM, has the most flow. Let's go test it with a foam cannon. But the problem is this one is the least available. What else? What do you know? I always find the stuff that no one can get. It's good. 12.7 amps, good to go. So thus far, out of all the machines, this is numero uno. Let's see what the 2000 PSI does. 1725. 14.9. So we're drawing, you can hear it, I can feel it in this pressure washer. More pressure, we're pulling, it just seems a bit more stout. The motor looks a little bigger. Again, this one comes with a better hose and everything. Let's check our flow. See, the nice thing about these is you realistically could live with this gun for a little while. You can adapt your foam cannon. They're built a little bit better. Again, has all standard fittings, so you spend less money on all your quick disconnects. The hose is better. I think, again, you're still going to want to upgrade it all, but these are the most viable thus far, right out of the box. I like how the Greenworks, they don't mess around with the hose reel either, because those hose reels are useless. A lot of them, they don't have a whip hose that connects the hose reel to the machine, and then they have the hose internally connected. You still have to disconnect the hose and in order to use the hose reel and remove it from the reel. That's stupid. This one certainly feels like it's flowing more, but let's see. Let's see if we sacrifice a lot of our flow for the extra pressure that we got out of this versus the others. It's also interesting that these are underrated or overrated from a pressure perspective, where the Ryobis had a lot more pressure with their funky nozzle they give you. 12.6. It's a little less flow than the 1950. 1.18. So, yeah, within reason. I mean, again, if we ran the test several times, we may get a different reading. All right, let's check. Let's do our modification after we check our SPL. 73. So it is louder. That's 1,025. I think that's our ticket. Yeah, if I put a 2.5 just real quickly, it's gonna be too much. Yeah, that's like 13 something. So we want a 3.0 nozzle. Let's do our GPM test. 15.1. Ooh, juicy. 1.474 GPM. This is the best pressure washer we've tested yet. So, Bryce, you're gonna have to go and check all the GPMs on those Ryobis tomorrow when I'm not here to go get it with the appropriate nozzle. Oh yeah, I can even feel a difference. You can hear the difference. Just enough so for the last test. I guess I can dump it from the other bottle. 13.2 amps with the 1.1 millimeter orifice. Sign me up. Okay. Greenworks 2200 PSI. This one's 300 bucks, 299 bucks retail. Again, I'm sure you could probably find it cheaper. But this one has like a little different sensor that tells you whether you're cleaning bricks or making soap. I guess it senses the pressure output. It's rated 2.3 GPM at 100 PSI and 2200 PSI at 1.2 GPM. So it's gonna be somewhere in between there. But it comes with the nicer hose, the better gun with the stainless end, so let's see what our pressure is. Now this one differs from the Ryobi. The Ryobi brushless doesn't turn off, but this one does sound, again, very odd. When it takes a second to ramp up. So we're 1150 PSI with the 40 degree just for fun. Let's see what happens when we put the 15 degree on. These are also much better accessorized than the Ryobis. Same thing, 1100 PSI. So we got 1125.
1125, 14.2 amps.
So drawing 14.2 amps. Let's see what our GPM rating. It's quite a bit. There's a roughly 4 second ramp up time to get it going. And it's clearly louder. Not as loud as the Ryobi, I don't think. We'll find out with the SPL meter here in a second, but. Okay. 16.8. Big numbers. 1.68 GPM. So the actual measured output is very different than what they put on the thing. I wish they would they just published those specs. What was our PSI rating? 1125 PSI at 1.7 GPM. Not bad. But still, I think I'd rather have the, that thing is clunky. So let's go do our SPL measurement and I'll show you. It's gonna be louder. 72, so not bad. So that's 1300 PSI at 3.0. I don't like that. So we're gonna go up to a 3.5 on this, I think. Which means this sucker's gonna flow almost 2 gallons a minute. Yeah, we're at like 1190. Let's try 4.0. 1050, I like that. 4.0 nozzle, 1050. Certainly loud. Now we're talking. I'm actually really surprised because remember how disappointed we were with the Ryobi. The Ryobi was junk, but this one is not bad. Let's see what kind of flow we got out of here. This feels heavy. 18.6 pounds, 1.894 GPM with a 4.0 nozzle. What was our current draw on that?
14.2.
Okay, 14.2 amps. So let's go check our foam cannon here and see if we need a 1.1 or if we might need to step up to a 1.25 on this one. So here's the 1.1. So I think we're still good. Let's see how we do. All right, what do we get there? So stay with the 1.1. We'll get better flow. Interesting. All right, that's the brushless. All right, let's clean this up and go wrap up the Greenworks. All right, so Ryobi project is now complete. So, or at least complete to the point to now where we can put together the packages for them. So we, gathered the results, and I was able to measure a little bit different output, putting different size nozzles on, which I guess makes sense. So those of you who are right about that can gloat and feel good about yourself this week. But that'll be added to the test. Add another minute to my life of each one of these pressure washers. I guess it would be subtract a minute. So 1500, 1600, 1700. These are the three sort of entries, all in the $100, $70 to $100 range. This one measured 1550, 1550, 1500. Ironically, this one's rated at the highest. They all did about 1.15 GPM, so very similar GPM. This has the same switch as the Ryobi, so these are all very similar to the Ryobi. But I think, fit and finish wise, the Greenworks stuff, it's kind of like going to Lowe's. The fit and finish of Lowe's is a little better than the fit and finish of Home Depot, but they both get similar results. Outside of the pressure rating, the Ryobis came with less stuff, less nozzle choices in most cases, but they put out more pressure than these, than these three. So my guess is it's just the orifice size. They're using a smaller orifice size on the Ryobi stuff. But I would choose these over the Ryobis. I don't think you can go wrong with either of them. Main advantage to these is much more readily sourced connections. So we have 14 millimeter M22 connections instead of 15 millimeter like the Sunjos and the ARs and the other pressure washers that are the Chinese made ones. So all of these performed okay. I don't think I'd choose any of these out of these three. I mean, I guess the 1500 performed the best. So it's kind of like the Ryobi, that unless we get into the bigger versions, the bigger variants, I think I'd choose the entry-level option, unless you're going to go up to the $150, $160 range. So let's pull those out and talk a little bit about those. Hoses, again, all of these, in a perfect world, new hose, new gun, new wand, 1.1 millimeter orifice foam cannon on all of these. These are all going to need a 2.5 size orifice nozzle, if you ask me. You could put a 2.0 on them if you wanted to try to squeeze a little more pressure, but I would stick with a 2.5. That seems to be the pressure that I like the most. Okay, so now we get into the more stout machines, which some of them appear to be more stout, the others appear to be just the same pumps turned on its side. The 1800 was probably the most disappointing. What did we get on these pressure wise? 15, so we got 1590, the 1950 did 1500, the 2000 only did 11 something? What? 1125 with the stock gun?
No, I'm sorry, the 2017.
Okay, yeah, 2017-25. So you did get some increasing pressure as you went up the line, and then the brushless is the one that did like 1125 psi with the stock configuration. So when you jump from the 1800 to the 1950, now the 1950 isn't all that available. From what I can tell, that Lowe's and stuff doesn't stock it, so I had to order this direct. So when we go from here to here, we get a better gun with the stainless thing. We get the better hose, and so it seems to be a no-brainer. What were these, like $30 difference between the two? So I think that this could be somewhat viable with the stock configuration. You could put the foam cannon on the shorter section of the gun. The gun is clearly better. It has a connection on the end where you could adapt the foam cannon. The quick disconnect isn't great, but it's certainly better than it is on the plastic gun. And then our flow characteristics are pretty similar on these three. What was the 18, 19, and 2000 flow wise?
1.1, 1.2, 1.2.
Okay. So they're all, around in the 1.2 range. So out of these, I would select the 2000. The 2000 is more readily available. What is it, $220, something like that for that thing?
170 or 199.
199, yeah. So $200 for the 2000. So in the line, I think that is the most viable. But again, you're a couple $100. You're going to want a new gun, even though the gun will work. You're going to want a new hose as well. So you're going to be, in the 500 for something range to do it all right. $500, something like that, and 550. So you'll want to put, I think we did 3.0 nozzles. Again, I'll publish all this data. It's hard to keep it all straight. But then the really surprising one was the brushless. The Ryobi brushless was a huge disappointment. It was really, really loud. It didn't have total stop, and the specs on it were worse. It actually flowed worse than any of the other machines from Ryobi. Now this one, surprisingly, once we modified it, I think it initially measured with the stock gun 1.7 gallons per minute, 1.6 and change, and then we got all the way up to, was it 1.8? Yeah, 1.89, almost 1.9 GPM with a 4.0 nozzle at 1100 psi, 1000 psi. So this thing's clunky. It takes a second to fire up, like it does. It takes about 3 or 4 seconds to ramp up. But we were able to do some pretty stout, get some pretty stout numbers from this particular machine. But again, you're going to probably buy this on sale for $250, $260. It retails for $299. But it has nicer wheels and a little bit more stout cart. What you would want to do is you'd want to pull off the soap dispenser and this somehow figure out how not to mount this one, because that thing is junk. I'd probably just take that off and never mount it to it. But this, when it comes to the better green hose, is a bit more viable. I guess longer term option if you're looking for something a little better. Comes with some decent nozzles, so not a bad solution. Okay, so the purpose of this process or this project is to figure out all this stuff that's needed, and so what's coming here, what I'm working on, and this whole process is figuring out, what will you need: hose, wand, gun. I'm going to give you the options to buy the MTMs or the Mosmatic, or whichever one you want, whichever variant, swiveling or non-swiveling. Inlet hose, giving you options for 6.5, 12 foot, 20 foot, 35 foot, 50 foot, 75 foot, however long hose you want to do, getting the nozzle sizes and telling you which nozzle size you think you need, and then getting you a new foam cannon, and then giving you the option to, or giving you the proper orifice nozzle integrated inside. So the basic premise here, the idea is to take all these machines, create a system on og.com, accessgarage.com, where you can go in and figure out what you need to buy without having to think through too much, at least, which setup you need. So all that stuff is coming. I'm weeks away from having this all vetted, tested, published, and then offered. And so hopefully you'll honor the source in me doing all this work, because we just put another 6 hours, 5 hours in today. That's before editing the video, to figure out how to put this all together. So anyway, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of the series. Next up, I guess, will probably be Sunjo Karcher AR Blue. And then after I get all these pressure washers out of here, I'm going to take it a little slower and maybe do the Stanleys and the Briggs and Strattons and the others that are available. So thanks for watching. As always, stay tuned for more crazy. What happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor, foot to the floor.